The first thing she tasted was dust thick and bitter and older than language and older than time, and the midwives wailed not for joy, but for dread, because the earth itself shivered beneath her cry, and the stones outside the birthing tent cracked not from cold, but from the echo of something ancient stirring, and when the elder placed her on the cracked altar of naming the runes, glowed for the first time in 1,000 years, and the villagers fell to their knees weeping, not understanding why, but knowing the prophecy had slipped loose, and it had chosen a girl born of ruin. She grew among broken machines, and husks of cities devoured by sand. Her toys were rusted gears, and jagged metal bones. Her lessons were wind and survival, and the whispering that came from the black chasms where no one dared go, and they told her she should smile more, should walk softer, should let her hair fall like the other girls, but her eyes were carved from volcanic glass, and her steps cracked the old stone paths, and when she screamed at the village elders, the sky turned red, and the birds fell silent and still. They refused to see that she was not made to obey. The drought came not from nature, but from revenge, because the old machines buried beneath the crust had tasted her footsteps, and stirred with hunger, and when she stood on the temple steps at 17, and demanded water for the sick, and food for the hollow-eyed, they gave her silence. So she raised her arms, and the ground shook, and the wells spat mud and fire, and the temple burst like a blister of lies and steam, and from the smoke came voices not human, not kind, not dead, and they whispered her name as if remembering it from before the world began. Beneath the crust below the bones of gods, deeper than any drill dared go, the old ones stretched and blinked and felt the pricking heat of her rage like a summons, like a kiss, and they stirred not with love, but with recognition, and the clouds turned black, and the seas hissed, and the stars blinked in patterns not seen since the before, and she stood atop the mountain, once thought sacred, and screamed again, this time not from anger, but from grief, and the sky answered not with thunder, but with laughter so ancient it broke glass and eardrums, and still she did not flinch. They came from the cities with shining ships and metal skins and eyes. Like dead moons they brought weapons and peace offerings and treaties in tongues older than war, and they told her to stand down, to be reasonable, to think of the consequences, but she had already counted the bones of the starving, already buried the innocent in craters of ash. So she raised her hand, and the weapons turned to salt, and the soldiers fell to their knees. And one of them whispered, "She is the air, she is the blade," and the sky opened wide, with screaming light, and silence followed. In the hollow place beneath the earth, where even gods did not walk, there lay a throne carved of bone and shadow, pulsing with memories and wrath. And when she entered, the dark swallowed her whole, and tested her with visions of sorrow and lies and love that had never been hers, but she walked through them all with unblinking fire, and the throne knew her not as a guest, but as a daughter returned, and it rose on its own, and waited, and when she sat the mountain bowed, and the old ones cried out in welcome, and the world tilted and shifted its weight toward her will. They came not to fight, but to beg, and still she gave them no comfort, because justice had no room for softness, no mercy for those who feasted, while others rotted, and her voice rolled like thunder across continents, and the oceans rose in agreement, and the beasts of the deep came to the surface to listen, and the winds carried her name to every forgotten place, and the machines once rested began to hum again with her anger, and the old ones spoke through her not with cruelty, but with clarity, and those who once ruled wept and called her queen, but she did not smile. When the stars fell, and the moons aligned, and the last of the false kings was buried beneath the dust from which she came, she walked alone into the wasteland she had made clean again, with fury and truth, and stood where her village once lay, and pressed her hand into the dirt, and whispered a song not of war, but of renewal, and the old ones listened and turned their gaze away at last, and the world sighed not in fear, but in hope, and from the cracks in the earth green things began to grow again, slow, stubborn, silent, and in her heart there was no peace, only purpose. She did not build temples, or carve her name into stone. She did not ask the wind to carry her story, she only walked. And where she walked the ground warmed, and where she stood the sky cleared, and one night beneath stars not yet named she knelt, and planted something small, not a weapon, not a warning, but a seed, and it glowed with memory and promise, and she whispered to it not as a queen, but as a daughter of dirt, and said, "Grow, even if I do not." And the old ones did not answer, for they were sleeping now full. And still, and somewhere in the silence, a child was born under a clean sky, and her first breath did not taste of ash, and her first cry did not wake the mountain. And far away, the woman who had made this new world closed her eyes beneath a tree she had never seen before, and smiled not because it was over, but because it had begun again.